Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Your boy Road Dogg here with the man, the myth, the legend, the big shoots from the big hill, Karl Bryan.
Yo, Road Dogg, what's happening, my man?
I am AC is working overtime. It is warm out, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Like, can you believe it? Like last night, we were sitting on your deck watching the hockey at like 10 o'clock at night, and it was still like 27 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and what is that? I'm hopeless with Fahrenheit, but I don't know what that is. That's like, I don't know, is it 90? 85?
Stand by. I'm on it. I gotta just.
Okay, I gotta say, okay, for our American listeners, we're gonna translate
it's 27 right now, so it's 81. So, like, for people in Arizona, they're like, "Geez, come on, you softies." But anyways, figure it out. Anyway.
All right, buddy.
Okay, you ready to jump into this?
I am, bud. What do you got for me, man?
Okay. Well, the first one is one that you and I actually discussed on over the weekend, and this is this is a very, very common question. I had a couple guys recently reach out to me from my team with this very, very question here, and I think everyone wants to know, when they're making phone calls, Karl, how in the heck do I get past the gatekeeper?
Okay, get past the gatekeeper. It starts with psychology. I hate to sounds like that might come out of the textbook, but when you call, do you expect to get through? You know what I mean? Like, you got to call in an absolute and total force. When I say forceful, not in a, you got to make sure that you, toe the line and, that you respect the gatekeeper. But at the end of the day, you need to expect to get past. And how do you do that? Like, just, you got something important, to get through. And the more important, like, you feel it is, the higher level of, certainty you're going to have, or confidence you're going to have to be pushing, right? But don't try to pitch the gatekeeper. A lot of folks do that. That's going to be an absolute last resort. Treat them like a gatekeeper. Think of them as a better word. Think of them as an influencer, because I guarantee that anybody, like a gatekeeper that's worked for, the accountant, whoever it might be, for a period of time, they absolutely have a level of influence over top of them. That might even be a bit of an understatement. So make sure that you're calling, with that in mind. Your tone, like, if you've got confidence, your tonality and whatnot, your voice inflections are important. And then you're thinking, okay, but gosh, I'm not comfortable on the phone. I'm better face to face, what have you. Well, there's one way to do it, and that's practice, which, again, I know that it's just one you got to get your head around, but you just got to pick up the phone. And that's not, it wasn't fun for me. It wasn't fun for you, Road Dogg. It wasn't fun for whoever Tony Robbins and whoever else you want to put in there. But we all did it. We pounded through, and then we got there. But look, the secret of the scenario is you've got to keep control, right? Like, when I taught retail sales, the worst thing that could happen is the prospect, or the person, say you're looking for a couch, who's leading who around the store. And I got to tell you, if you're leading the salesperson around the store, we have a major problem, right? No doubt you could see that dynamic. So if I'm the salesperson and you're looking for a couch, we stand right there. I'm going to try and establish that little red arrow, you are here, and then establish a good picture as to what it is that you're looking for. And then I'm going to take you around the store, and I'm going to show you what it is that I want to be showing you. So in other words, like, I'm in front, what I'm trying to get at, like, you need control. So let's do let me role play like maybe a script. You call up, and the gatekeeper opens the phone, and you say, "Hey, can I speak to Dave Johnson?" And by the way, if you don't have Dave Johnson's name, please do not call up and say, can I speak to the business owner? For goodness sakes. And in this day and age with LinkedIn and Facebook and websites and everything else, take you 3 seconds, not 30 seconds, but 3 seconds to find their name. So you're going to call up and say, hi, can I speak to what I say? Dave Johnson, right? The gatekeeper, who is this? You say, John Smith. And then the gatekeeper says, what? What is this in reference to? You say, oh, I'm calling about my XYZ. I'm calling about my product. I'm calling about my service. The gatekeeper says what? Okay, let me see if he's in, if she's in. Well, who led that conversation? And let me tell you, the gatekeeper led that. That was effectively you following the gatekeeper around the store versus, hi, this is John. Like, I'm John Smith. Hi, I'm John Smith. Is Dave Johnson in? Well, what did I just do? I just took away her first question. Okay, so because she asked, who is this? I just took that away from her, right? Very important. Oh, he stepped out. What can I help you with? I would ask, sorry, who am I speaking with? She says, Samantha. See how all of a sudden okay, awesome, Samantha. When will Dave be back? Now, I just went from his full name to Dave, important, right? And by the way, I also need to understand, maybe he goes by David and maybe he goes by Dave. Again, a little bit of research on the internet. You're not always going to be able to get this one. But if he goes by Dave and I'm calling him David, this is not ideal, right? But anyway, so, okay, Samantha, when will Dave be back? He'll be back at 2:00 p.m. I was controlling that. I was controlling the dynamic of that. It started at the beginning when I took away her first question. So you introduce yourself, and then you got to introduce yourself with some mojo, right? Like, again, and if you did a little bit of homework, I've talked a lot about this, like on social media and that sort of thing. Like, do some homework. Have they been up for awards? Like, do they have, what are the names of the programs that they have? What are the names of the services that they have? You also, actually, as I say that, you got to be careful. Actually, Road Dog, this happened to me literally over the weekend as I checked my emails this morning. Somebody sent me an email and they're like something about the podcast and they're congratulating me on the marathon. Right. And I'm like, oh, Lord. And if you guys have been listening for any period of time, I am not the guy that ran the marathon. Road Dog is. I could run around the block and I'm flat out. But anyway, so yeah, they ruined it right there, right? You know what I mean? Like, I just delete, not happening. So in other words, if you are calling about their programs and whatnot, be a little bit cautious with that, because it's not, there's crazier things that have happened than somebody's got a website that's totally out to date. And the names of the programs and the services and the names of the staff members on the website are no longer current. So again, this is something I'd be, spending a little bit of time on, and end the call on a high note. Again, you can't get through to the gatekeeper. Like, never if you are a salesperson, you never hang up the phone first. Okay. You let them hang up the phone and then you hang up. You want to make sure, because remember, what did I start with this? Like, she's an influencer or he's an influencer in that instance, critical. And, and if in this day and age, is it harder today than it was 10 years ago? And the answer is a lot harder. So at some stage, you might need to change your strategy. And this is where, I would potentially ask for some help, right? Like, Road Dog, we both love the movie Wall Street, right? Where there's part of the movie is him getting through the gatekeeper. Like, he brought her chocolates and remember her birthday and that sort of thing. Or actually, no, he brought that for Gordon. But he knew her so well and she knew him, and he called every week for literally 2 years or whatever it was. That's, he managed to get through. Very importantly, he did it in a very respectful, kind way. Again, if you start this with your psychology that this is a gatekeeper and she's a pain in the ass or he's a pain in the ass, this is not a good idea, right? Actually, in Tim Ferriss, another good point is Tim Ferriss, in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, which, by the way, again, make sure you read the book. People see the 4-Hour Work Week, the name of it, and they think that he wants to work for it. The book is about working 4 hours. That is not it. But one of the hacks that he's got is calling before and after hours. Why would you do that? Because the gatekeeper's not there, right? So Tim will talk about how he basically crushed all the guys he was competing with, and he was only working, part of the day when they were working flat out. And part of his X factor was that he was calling before and after. But bottom line, Road Dog, look, who's got control? You need the phone, and this will take some practice. But just think of the retail example. If you go into a retail store and you are leading the salesperson around the store, we've got problems. So there you go, bud. That's what I'd say about getting through to the gatekeeper.
So a couple things from my perspective too, but I would say, go back to good old Bud Fox, our good buddy Bud Fox.
Yeah, Bud Fox. Yeah.
You know what Bud didn't do? Bud didn't try calling Gordon Gekko once. You know what I mean? He kept calling and calling and calling because that's just what he wanted to do. So anyways, I thought that was very important. Another thing that I think is important, just like you were saying, confidence, right? Like if you have the confidence and you just call, right? Like if I'm calling, it's like, hey, can I speak to Carl? Well, who is this? Oh, it's Christian, the marketing guy, right? Like I'm assuming that they're just.
Is that what you say? Hang on, that's a beauty. That's what you say. I'm Christian, the marketing guy. Is that what you say?
It's like, the thing that drives me crazy, it's like this isn't LinkedIn. You don't need to introduce your formal self with your first and last name. Like you're not Denzel, right? Like let's not.
You're not Denzel. There you go. No joke.
So, anyways,
we were all Denzel.
The direct approach and just the confidence, and I think that's a huge part. And we're all
calling and saying you're Christian, the marketing guy, that just oozes everything I just said. That's just confidence on steroids. Like the expectation is that you're getting through and you've done this before. I love that. Everybody should steal that.
So speaking of other scary things, this is a good question here because it's one to be scared for us to go out and make calls. This is this question here. My client needs to fire a staff member. Like yikes, right? And it keeps them awake at night. Any strategies on that?
First of all, it shouldn't be keeping somebody awake at night. This is, talking about, we got to start with, listen to what I just said a minute ago, psychology. You got to manage that one. You got to toughen the heck up, I guess is what I'm saying. You got to, look, I think you got to change here it is. Okay. Actually, here it is. How many times have you heard a story like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank comes to mind, just off the top of my head, but they're everywhere, and probably those listening, like you've experienced it, where you got fired from a job, and what was it? And it was a pain in the you-know-what when it happened, but it ended up being your greatest gift. If somebody needs to be fired, there is a disconnect between them, the company goals, etc. You're doing them a favor, and that will shift everything, right? Where it won't keep you awake at night. I mean, I don't want to sound like it's not like you're going to get excited about that call, because again, a good person doesn't want to deliver this kind of news. That's kind of a 101. But you gotta, if you change the context of it, you are doing them a favor, because they are so limited in that role. Like they're not getting a promotion, they are not getting a raise, and you're sitting there thinking about firing them, right? Like that's not happening. So you're doing them a favor. You know what I mean? I think that changes the context. Like speaking of context, like you've got to put the company, like clearly define the outcome, right? And you're trying to move up the food chain, and you're trying to become more valuable to the company. Well, you've all heard me say this, like everybody's heard me say this, but your greatest successes will come through other people. Well, you've got to build a team of people who you're not thinking about sacking and firing, but you're thinking about, how are we going to pay this individual more? So, clearly just defining that outcome, just do what's right, like establish what's right and what's wrong, and what's right is right. And, letting somebody go, it's like I said, I can get the psychology of it, waking, keeping somebody awake and that sort of stuff, but no, you're doing them a favor. And again, especially in the instance that it's like a skilled person, that sort of stuff. Trying to keep it, okay, if they're staying awake at night too, it's trying to keep everybody happy. If you're trying to keep everybody happy, you are, this is, if there's ever a slippery slope, a funnel towards failure, it would be trying to, keep everybody happy. You need to be thinking about keeping the company happy. Like think about the company as a child, right? And it's somebody who you are responsible for and to looked after. And the most important thing you do with a child is you surround them with the right people and the right kind of people with the right kind of values, right? So, just, go back to what is right. Um, I don't know. People, like, yeah, just if you look at kids and whatnot, right? Like, or no, if you look at adults and then you look back in the past, um, the kids that have the toughest time in life on average are the ones without two parents present. With no parent present, you're in big trouble. With one parent present, you're at a distinct disadvantage. And if you've got both parents very active in your life, you've got a significantly better chance of having a kick butt life. Like, what am I getting at? You've got to surround the company with the best people. You know what I mean? And even actually, a book comes to mind. Yeah, actually, you know what, Road Dog? It was last week, or the week before. One of the questions was the books. I don't think that I mentioned Principles by Ray Dalio. Like, again, I think that might be a good place to start. I just go through principles and create some principles again. Like, and principles effectively are a different way of saying what is right and what is right for the company. Like, what are the rules that guide the company? Like, every sport, every competition has always got rules. Well, if they're having that much trouble or you're having that much trouble, I would dare say that management hasn't provided you a good, clean set of rules to abide by. So I just come back, Road Dog. It's all context. And I just, you got to look at it like you're doing them a favor. And then the second part is you got to just toughen the hell up, which really comes back to one word, and it's psychology. So I think it just needs to be a reframe. But, something like that shouldn't be, keeping any, well, no, you got to be careful with keeping somebody awake at night, because again, and I dare say that person might be in the wrong position. You know what I mean? Like, if it's that challenging, that it's keeping them awake at night or whatnot. But, just come back to what's right. So there you go, Road Dog. That's what I'd say, bud.
I would probably say this is probably showing up in other parts of their life as well, right? Like, I have a feeling that if they're having trouble with making these decisions there, they probably have a real trouble just saying no in general. And I think that that's sort of an important skill and habit. You always talk about that. Your immediate response is always no. I'm not sure if you learned that from your wife, but
unfortunately, yes, unfortunately.
So, but anyways, it's one of those things, right? It's like you have to treat it's business. It's a business decision. Like, move on. Like, if the person's not right, they're not right. You got to move on. Like, you're hurting yourself and your business by keeping bad people in your business, and you're doing them a disservice. It's like being in a bad marriage. Staying in it longer doesn't make it any better. You got to end it, and you got to move on with your life. But anyways,
actually, well, you know what? Yesterday, actually, you were talking about, Wasey. So Wasey, my godson, right? Okay, so he's trying out for a AAA hockey team on the weekend. I went to go watch him, try out to do. Okay, so here's the story behind Wasey. So Wasey lived with his mom. He's in Saskatchewan, and if you don't know Saskatchewan, it's just not the, it's not the metropolis of, it's not New York City. Let's put it that way. Or Saskatchewan is the province, by the way, which is equivalent to the state. Yada. He lived in a small little town, literally no paved roads, no traffic lights. I mean, this is a small little town of, I don't know, like 1,000 people, right? And he's been planning to, move to where we live, right? Kelowna, where his dad lives. And, he thought about, for 4 years in a row, he was like, I'm doing it, never did it. And I took him for a car ride. And this is when I was just getting to, know him a lot better and this kind of thing, right? And I just said to him, I said, look, man, you're making this decision too big, right? It's just, you're making it monstrous. I said, kids go to Australia, they go to China, they go to Japan, they go to all different countries of the world. And what do? They do like 6 months, they do 12 months. I said, you got to stop thinking about it as moving to Kelowna, and you got to start thinking about it as a 6-month trial. So I said, just come here, do one semester. If you like the semester, then do a second one. And if you don't like it, you jump in your car, you jump in a plane, and you're basically going to be home with your mom, no problems. But you could imagine that as a young kid, he's 15 at that stage. This was a big decision for him, right? So he was a little bit timid. Now he made the decision, right? Road Doggy, Waste. Like, I mean, this kid is a legend. And to say that his dad's got a house on the water, he's got his own dock, he's got his boat sitting out there. He's got all these wicked buddies. He's a good little hockey player, a great little baseball player, etc. So he's just to say that he's living his best life is just like, it's unbelievable, right? And if you speak to him, he's like, oh, and he's just so like partly pissed off at himself because he didn't make the decision quicker, right? Anyway, so I'm watching him try out for this AAA hockey team. He's not the biggest kid in the world, right? So he's trying out for a AAA team, and he's out there, and guess what I saw in him? A little bit of that same, he was a little bit, he's this kid, he can skate with them. He's got his head up, he can move the puck, but he was timid. So I said to him, Wace, come on over here, man. I said, here's the problem. The same thing that I saw on that rink was the same thing that I see in your life. And that was where you didn't make a hard decision quicker, and now you're looking back, kicking yourself. I said, I don't want you to get cut. If you're going to get cut from the AAA team, that's the way it goes. But when the tryouts are done, I don't want you to be able to say it's because you didn't, you weren't aggressive enough, or you weren't putting, like you weren't going hard at it. And the moral of the story, and again, on the podcast at some stage, Road Dog, for sure, we talked about this, but like, if you want to get to know somebody, just go play them in golf. Right? And it's not about how great you are at golf or bad you are at golf. It's the way that just some people are just naturals. Others are kicking the ball out of the rough and hoping that nobody's looking. Some, shaving scores on their, on the scorecard, etc. Like, that is somebody. And I grew up playing hockey, and I can tell you with ridiculous, predictability, when I look back at playing hockey with guys in the past, like when we were kids growing up, that's how their life unfolded. And those that were timid remain timid and are timid to this day. And those that were, aggressive and, just all the different attributes that go with, playing sport. And that would be gymnastics, and that's jiu-jitsu, and that's, if you're doing ninja training, what's that, ninja warrior training, whatever. So here's the good news. If Wacey, and this goes for all of us listening, by the way, but if Wacey adjusts his play on the rink, his decisions off of the rink will go in the right direction. And it's a great way to influence kids, quite frankly, because you turn them into a better athlete, and then you turn them into a better human being. And this is why governments spend an absolute fortune on sport, because it's well documented. But, good young sportsmen become good young athletes, and sportsmen become, good professional human beings. It's a 101. So anyways, a little bit of a, if it's, you're exactly right, Road Dog. What you said is, if he's feeling this much angst and whatnot in and around firing somebody, if you look back to, his days as an athlete when he was younger, and maybe on the golf course right now, same things are showing up. So if he starts making this decision, quicker and with more authority, and he's more comfortable with it, and he's good at reframing it in his mind, his life is going to accelerate, and just other things with his wife and his kids and whatnot are going to become easier. So there you go, Road Dog. That's ironical. That was literally a conversation I had yesterday with Wace. So there you go, bud.
There you go. Buttes. Here's a bit of a different one. Like, typically we have more of the startup type questions, but this is good. What's one or two strategies to help business coaches make more money? That's kind of a 101. How to go from 100K per year to 3 to 500K per year. There we go. There's some.
Cool. Okay, there you go. Good. Yeah, love the question. High five. What to say? First things first. I'll give a different example. I hear all the time, people will say to me, Carl, I want to make $1 million. And then I will say back to them, I play dumb, and I say, how much is that per month? And they can never give me an answer, right? So first thing you got to do is we got to reverse engineer these numbers to work out exactly what's required. Like, it's just off the top of my head, you got 20 clients at $2,000 a month. That would be $480,000 a year, right? So now you've got yourself a bit of a framework. So now that I know how to get the 480, my question is, you got to reverse engineer the KPIs, like the number of phone calls, the number of contacts, the number of appointments, the number of live events, the number of people in those live events. You know what I mean? And how much I need to be charging, et cetera. You got to reverse engineer your numbers to get that. If you don't do that, this is not happening. The end, right? Part of that, without sounding like a broken record here, but psychology, it's going to happen in your head before it happens in the real world. The fact that somebody's asking this question tells me that process is well and truly undertaken. Like, the wheels are turning. I think go tactical. Okay, like the tactical steps. You need to charge more, because remember, what are they at? They're at 100. What was it, Road Dog? They're trying to get to where? 3? How much was it? 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Yep.
Yeah. So they're at 1. They're trying to get to 3 to 5. So look, again, reverse engineering those numbers, but you got to charge more is one way to get there. You got to sell your existing clients more. This is another way. And then, of course, retaining the clients longer. This is going to help, right? So there's really, like if you go to Tony Robbins and well, not so much, I mean, Tony Robbins didn't invent this by any stretch, but chunking, absolutely critical. So if I were to chunk it down, you've got 3 baskets for your coaching business. You got lead generation. You got a consistent way to get people reaching out to you and you reaching out to them that basically go to strategy sessions that go to clients, right? So you need these 3 baskets to fill. Lead generation is the first one. The second one is conversion, because it's one thing to get in front of somebody. It's a whole other thing for get them to, sign the paperwork. And then the third thing you need is fulfillment. What most folks wouldn't, like, I think if you're trying to get to 3 to 500, if you've already got to 100, the hard work is done. Going from 1 to 3 is significantly easier than getting from 0 to 1, right? You've got an airplane on the ground. You've well and truly got it up in the air. Now you're just trying to elevate it a little bit. Kind of putting, pressing on the gas pedal. What will stop it from happening is basket number 3, and that's the fulfillment. So you have got to hire somebody. If you want to hit 500 grand legitimately, somebody is going to need to be hired, right? And then, of course, someone will say to me, okay, well, I will hire somebody when I'm ready. And then I will say back to them, reasons come first, answers come second. You got to hire somebody now. And then magically the magic starts to happen. More leads, more prospects, more events, etc. I would also go like psychology wise, Road Dog. I'd go to if you're looking to have really what we're looking through is a breakthrough, right? If you want to go from one to 3 is pretty 1 to 3 probably happen if you just pour gasoline on everything you're doing. But getting to 500 grand, all of a sudden there's some there's a lot of work involved in retaining those clients. It sounds good when I just say, oh, just get 20 clients at $2,000 a month. I mean, every client you sign on doesn't retain, and that sort of stuff is just totally unrealistic. So what we're looking for is a breakthrough. And again, this is one that we have covered in the past. So I'm not going to skip over it, but I'm going to go quickly over it. And that's 3 words. Like when I do a live event, we're in Cancun and I'm doing business coaching mastery, which we do every year. There is a sign. If it's not right beside me, it's within, 5 steps, always, because I refer to it throughout, for the entire event, and it's state, story, strategy. And again, if you're listening and you want to break through, you want to crush it in anything, you want to lose weight, you want to stop smoking, you want to, start a business, you want to close a business and do something else, you want to sell a business, state, story, strategy are the 3 words. So let me give you a real quick metaphor. It's real simple. Strategy. Let's just assume you're trying to lose weight. What does everybody do? They go to the internet and work out the strategy. They're going to go keto. They're going to go Jenny Craig. They're going to do this, that, and the other, right? They're going to follow a strategy, a diet or a fitness plan. Well, the problem is, so then why, if it's so damn easy in like 30 seconds on the internet, you would have yourself a killer strategy on how to lose weight. So then the question is, well, why does nobody lose weight? You got to come back to the next word, and that's story. Okay. What's the story they're telling themselves? I'm big boned. I'm this, I'm that. My parents were fat. It's just the way I am, blah, 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 blah. Right. They've got this story. Well, no strategy in the world will work if you don't have the story. Right. And then it's like, okay, well, I just got to change my story. And the answer is no. You got to come back to state. Okay. The ultimate state, is just one of hunger and determinedness. If you want to know what separates Serena Williams from the other tennis players and the Roger Federer from the other tennis players, basically it's state, right? It's a level of hunger inside them that you just can't measure it. Like Federer's got more money than he could ever spend in 17 lifetimes. Why is he hitting balls at 5 a.m. and there's not a tennis tournament coming up anytime soon because of the crazy pandemic, right? So state, story, strategy. So if you want to go and bust through and hit towards 500 grand, state, story, strategy. The strategy, I can give you the strategy. My question is, what's the story inside your head? And I started there, right? Like it's going to happen in your head before it happens anywhere else. And then state. And if I break down these numbers, strategy is 1%, story is 4%, state is 95%. But the problem is that the 1%, which is the strategy, drives the other 99. So don't think that an unbelievable state is going to get you past a poor strategy. Like you've got to have the right game plan, but unfortunately it's so, it's a distant third. Well, like it's literally 1% of the 100, but it's a critical, but it can't be done without. I want to go from 1 to, I might even go chaos versus order. A little bit again, this could be the entire, this could be a far more than a 1 hour conversation, but the enemy of a great life is a good life, right? Write that down. The enemy of a great life is a good life. One of the problems I'd say you've got, is stuck at 100. Like everything's kind of working. You know what I mean? Like it's okay. It's not, it's not buying Ferraris and Lamborghinis. But like, everything is working. So, comfort is an absolute killer. It's an absolute bloody killer. So what am I getting? So chaos versus order. I just want to, you are at 100 grand, you are in order is what I'm trying to say here. In order to go to 500, you're going to have to hit chaos, and you've got to accept that. It's quite frankly, what does it do? It brings you into uncertainty. It brings you into chaos, and that's not going to be a lot of fun. Right. So, there are 4 laws of, chaos. I'll try spit them out. I may get one wrong, but that's fine. Number 1 is like unfair advantage. Okay. What's an example of an unfair? Some people are born into, Lamborghinis and Ferraris and gold credit cards and that sort of stuff. That would be an example of an unfair advantage. Or actually a great example. We talked about hockey earlier, or sport. Okay. So if you've got let's assume that, how like kids, like you're 15 and then you turn 16 and you play in a different division and a different age group, right? And they go by 2 years. Well, if your birthday is in January, and the cutoff is the end of December, you effectively have if you look at professional athletes, you will find with ridiculous predictability, and this is from Freakonomics, the book, which is great, by the way, those born in the first 3 months of the year have a tremendous advantage over those born later. Okay, why? Because they're bigger, right? So that's unfair advantage. I could go on, but that'll give it. Entropy, which again, Road Dog, I think we talked about in the past. That's not long ago. Entropy basically dictates. It's a fancy word for saying things decline. Okay, so like gravity. Think of gravity, but for products and what your health is entropy factors in. As you get older, you're not going to get healthier, right? That's just not happening, right? Like as you get older, your body's not going to become tighter. It's going to do the opposite. But you can maintain it and fight entropy. But at the end of the day, you're not going to stop it. So don't even try to, it's a rule. It's a universal principle, right? So entropy. So if you write a kick butt program today, on SEO, on how to run Facebook ads, 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, it's going to decline, in value, right? That's going to happen with 100% certainty. So you got to upkeep this. The law's initial conditions. There's a Chinese proverb that things often end the way they started. Okay, so if you take on a staff member and they are not of, like you just take on a staff member to take on a staff member just to kind of get yourself going, this probably will not work out well because you didn't have the systems in place. There's also a saying in business, you get what you deserve. And when you first start hiring employees, you don't deserve much, so therefore you don't get much. And that shouldn't discourage you from taking on staff members. It should inspire you to get the ball rolling, right? But the bottom line is initial conditions are absolutely critical. But where I really want to go is feedback. Okay, so this is a law of chaos that is super, super important. So if you want to experience like an exponential increase, you need to have feedback. So here's the question. This guy made, or this gal made 100 grand last year, right? I want to know if they took 40 grand and put it back into their business. Okay. And most people don't do that. What do they do, Road Dog? You make 100 grand, you go to 250, and you know what you do? You spend the extra 150 like it's found money, like you won the lottery. What do you buy? You buy a better car, a better house, a Gucci handbag. The guy takes up watches or shoes before he's ready for watches and shoes. And you know what I mean by that, right? Like the expensive stuff and significantly over the top. So what you got to do is you need to provide a Facebook loop, like what I do. So we spend a lot of money on advertising, right? So spend money on advertising. By take that money and don't, create a feedback loop and just, picture again, a circle, but with 2 arrows where we continually, it's not a continual circle, but it's like a 180, 180, 180, 180. When you put the money in the bank account, you got to put it back into your company. I'm going to segue a little bit. Like right now, everybody, I'm getting asked all the time. In fact, I've written emails just recently about, Google and Apple stock and that kind of thing. And it's like, if you have a business God, who cares what Apple's doing? Who cares what Google's doing? Who cares what the stock market's doing? Take that money and put it in the staff, right? Like stocks and real estate, like real estate will be on sale, in about 18 months, I assume. I am before I guess I say that, do your own homework. Don't listen to me. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, right? I got grade 8 math skills. But the bottom line is that real estate will be on sale and the stock market is going to be on sale, right? Like that's happening. That's happening. People are also on sale is where I'm going. So forget the stock market and whatnot. Forget about investing in real estate. Go invest in people. Go invest in your own company. If you want to go from 100 to 500, very important. That's who I'm speaking to. If you're making 100, 150 grand and you're happy, okay, awesome. Totally different conversation. And everything I just said for the last 10 minutes would be adjusted, not entirely, but adjusted. But where I want to go, Road Dog, very important, is that do you have a feedback loop? Like if you make okay, here's the question. How much money do you donate to, different causes that you believe in or your church? Like how much money are you giving away? And let me tell you, let's just say you're making 100 grand a year now. If you're not giving away a percentage at 100 grand, you're not going to do it a million. The end. Okay. So what does that mean? The feedback loop, if you're not doing this at 100 grand, what I say 40, that's just an arbitrary number. I don't know how much it costs to live, but the bottom line, if you're only making 100 grand, you got to make sure that your life is set up in such a way so that you don't have massive expenses, so that you can understand that 100 grand's for your company, not for you, right? Again, a big mistake, pay yourself first. You've got to make sure in your own company that you've got retained earnings and you're taking a percentage of that and putting it back into the company. I think the easiest way, Road Dog, I'm going around a little bit here. You got to make sure that if you are making 100 grand, if you got an advertising campaign that makes 100 grand, you've got to take a good percentage of that and feed it back to increase the results and increase your advertising. And really what you're doing that way is you're pouring gasoline on something that's work, right? So like one thing, okay, so people are completely obsessed with comfort, right? Like most people, they're just, they're in love with comfort. Okay. So what I say is I can find any business owner 100 grand in 45 minutes. Now listen to this bit, without spending $1 on marketing or advertising. That elevator pitch without spending $1 on marketing or advertising, I'm taking them into order. Okay. That's why it's there. Okay. The chaos is making 100 grand quickly in 45 minutes. And then I follow it with order. It's not by accident, right? Like there's a bunch of reasons why it happens. Like I said, order, chaos. And by the way, look, guys, I'm a hack at this, right? Like I know the concept. I think pretty damn well. But Joel Peterson as an example, and as soon as I say him, I'm worried about cognitive dissonance now because some of you know Joel Peterson, and he's a Canadian, by the way, good old-fashioned Canadian Road Dog. But anyways, he does some pretty powerful stuff, in my opinion. I don't agree with everything he's done, and I'm guessing that you don't either, or says, but he's very polarizing. So you kind of love him or hate him kind of guy, but to study his order and chaos is something that I would encourage you to do if you like this topic. But the bottom line, to go from 100 to 500, you have to accept some chaos in your life. And most people will tell me how badly they want to make, again, 500 grand, $1 million. But the reality, Road Dog, it's back to where a guy who's worried about firing somebody, right? Like look, this should have been said then, right? Chaos versus order. He's just completely obsessed with order, and that the chaos is keeping him awake at night, right? So, it's like I tell a coach, look, you got to pick up the phone and phone somebody. What do they say back? Hey, can I just text or email them? Right? It's like, oh man, please, right? Like, but again, to be clear, and I'm kind of joking. I don't mean to be all facetious, but you got to understand the lunacy of it, right? Because prior to me giving that advice, they were telling me something along this line, right? Like, oh, look, I'm gonna be your, best this, best that, and I'm crushing $250. Pandemic, government mandated lockdown. I don't care, man. You tell me what to do. You say jump, and I'll say how high. I say, okay, phone someone. They go, well, look, you know what I mean? They come back to comfort. They want to text or email. So, and very importantly, Road Dog, state story strategy, right? Like I think that you asked me one time, Road Dog, what's the number one thing that I learned from Tony Robbins? And again, I love Tony Robbins. Some people love him and some people hate him. He's polarizing. Don't care. That's irrelevant. The number one thing that I have ever learned from him estate story strategy. And I want to encourage you to take those 3 words away. And then I think you could kind of take chaos and order and kind of filter it through. So my man, Road Dog, that's what I'd say. And again, the feedback loop, like you go from 100 to 200. If you go buy a bigger house and more shoes and a Gucci bag for your wife, or you buy the Gucci bag, etc., that's just not what that's the death sentence. So there you go, Road Dog. That's my answer, bud.
So stop buying Gucci bags for yourself, bud.
Damn, have you seen my collection?
Yeah, it's impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Your wife is pretty jealous. But anyways, hey, I gotta tell you, man. Like when you talk about throwing money back into a business, and like I gotta give you this example because I share this a lot. So like when I'm talking to somebody, and I always you talk to any investment person, as you all know, I spent many years in that industry. If you got somebody an 8% annualized rate of return inside of their 401k, RRSP, their super, whatever, depending what country we're in,
wow,
they'd be pretty thrilled, right? Like everyone's pretty happy. But yet inside of my agency, if I'm talking to somebody about running a Facebook ad campaign, and I say, listen, my minimum target is to get you $2 for every dollar. And they're unimpressed. Like they're like somehow 100% return on their money, but yet they'll take an 8%. So it's the same thing, dude. Like it's the same thing. You can apply it to marketing. You can apply it to bringing in a salesperson, a staff member. Like it's going to only accelerate. Like the best investment for any entrepreneur is their own business, not somebody else's. That's my personal opinion.
100%.
Like
100%, buddy.
The only reason that they don't is because they either have told themselves a story that they have to invest it in another person's business, or they're not that confident in terms of what they're doing, which means they need you even more than they realize. So anyways, I'm feeling
and I agree, man. I agree. They're looking for a 10. Yeah, but that 10% return, man, it's crazy. So it's agreed.
All right, dude. Can you do one in under 10 minutes? Like, is this possible for you?
It's possible. Let's go. I'll work it out.
It's a big one. We're going to give it a go, folks. Let's see what happens. We might be heading to maybe like 5 overtimes here, but we'll see what happens.
Let's do it.
Do you set a monster goal or small little ones and celebrate along the way? I've heard you answer this before, dude, and I love this. But yeah, I don't think everybody's heard this. So great question. Do you set a monster goal or small little ones? Not sure why small little ones. That's kind of a... Anyways, you get the point.
Okay. I'm hoping that I'm going to answer it the same way as I did last time, because I know I've been guilty of going in totally different directions. But okay, so a big goal or small little ones. Okay, you gotta create a monster. Not only should you create a big goal, or how I think it was worded differently, but whatever. Like you gotta create a monster vision for yourself, right? Like talking monster, and again, like going to a third world country and building schools, like that kind of thing, right? Like if you're trying to, like, the distinction of trying to make $100,000 is lame. A distinction for trying to make $500,000 is significantly bigger, but still lame. But when you start thinking about others, you always do more for others than you do for yourself. That's just an important part of this. So you want to create that monster vision of yourself. Look, here's a monster psychology hack, actually. And before I do that, like if you're not studying, like let's say somebody's listening and their son or daughter have ADD, or they suffer from depression. What do they do? Like on average, what do? Like we go to the doctor and then we get prescribed drugs and we go with it, right? You got to go buy some books on how the brain works. You know what I mean? And videos and audios. You know what I mean? Like study this stuff. Like just a conversation I had with a bud not long ago. He struggles with depression and ADD, and he's open about it, which is quite frankly refreshing and important, right? Because again, mental issues have this stigmatism, right? My big bro committed suicide, right? So I can't begin to tell you. I wish the world would just start, just stop it. You break your leg and everybody gives you, care and attention, but you suffer from depression and everybody's like embarrassed for you, right? Like we got to change that. But anyways, but I just said to him, I said, look, man, first of all, you got to lay off the booze, right? The end. You've got to look at your diet, the end. And I said, look, man, you need to start studying how the brain works, right? Like even cold water, right? Like you jump in a freezing cold bath, at an absolute minimum, a cold shower, like close, shut your shower off, by hitting the cold and, freeze yourself a little bit. It will put you, it improves mood with 100, even the most depressed person on the planet, and that will improve your mood. What I'm getting at there is there's some, you got to study this stuff, right? Like you can't, if you suffer from depression, you'd just be crazy not to do that. Let's keep cranking, right? But no doubt that part's obvious. But here's the hack that I wanted to get to. Okay, so there's two rats, and they go into a tube, and the job of, they both want to get that. I suppose there's a piece of cheese at either side, whatever it is. But one is going to win, and one is going to lose. Okay, the one that wins, and this is you can look this study up. Like this is anything that I found. This is well documented. But anyway, so the rat that gets to the other side and pushes the one rat out, the next time that they go again, I don't know what the number is, but they win an unbelievable amount of time the second time, right? Like let's say 90% predictability, they win a second time and the following time and the following time. Like as in once they win, they crush everybody. And then the one that loses, guess what? Same thing, loses. And here's part of the hack is that even when the rat was pushed, okay, so like artificial, what am I trying to say? Like, you know what I mean? Like it was artificially, had an advantage, like literally a human's finger is poking through. That's a bit of a weird visual. But anyway, so a finger is pushing the rat through. When he wins with assistance, they still have that probability of 90% to win the next time, right? That's crazy. Okay, so what the question is, small, small or big. So you want to have that monster vision, but with 100% certainty, you've got to be experiencing little wins along the way. I'm trying to think of a guy who I heard recently. He's a neurologist, reasonably famous one. I can't think of his name. Shoot. But anyway, so if you like this topic, I would encourage you to go and listen to some of what, his stuff, and he'll teach you more about the brain in about 30 minutes. He's been interviewed by Tim Ferriss and all the big dogs. Huberman, Andrew Huberman, that's his name, Andrew Huberman. So if you like this stuff, go with it. But okay, so what it is that the hack, and I don't think as I'm saying it, it sounds like a huge hack, but in, the way that he describes it, he's like, this is a hack on stinking steroids, where you just got to create little wins for yourself, and then you need to celebrate them, right? So an example is, okay, Road Dog, you ran a marathon, right? Like, if you just put the win on the marathon, look, it's going to be 3 months or whatever number of months until you even have the opportunity to pat yourself on the back, right? Which is pretty obvious. What you've got to do is you got to set up a series of wins, like getting the rat to the other side along the way. Because what's going to happen? Because when you win one, you win the next one, and you win the next one, and you win the next one. Just think of it as a day, right? You just start winning the day, winning the day, winning the day. It can have an unbelievable effect. Like there's a Navy SEAL, again, I think it's Jocko, but he talks about how like he does push-ups. Like most people do push-ups and they get tired. His psychology is that when I do push-ups, I get stronger. It's a totally different way of seeing the exact same thing, right? So you got to get, so maybe another example is you got to get excited. Go back to the guy who's going to fire somebody, right? And he's uncomfortable, like, setting up the appointment, get excited about that. Like you're about to grow. And yeah, you're going to give somebody some bad news, but remember the context, how we changed it. We are doing this person the greatest favor because they are here and just treading water and not getting a promotion and not getting a raise. And they're in the wrong position, in the wrong company, in the wrong industry. And this is part of their journey where they've got to find it, right? And maybe that's a lame example, but, getting excited about setting up an appointment to fire somebody. But I don't know that it's not. Or maybe let's go to the uncomfortable conversation. Like everybody listening, if you have staff, no doubt that there's some uncomfortable conversations that have to happen, right? Well, when you have that uncomfortable conversation, or when you set up the conversation, you have the conversation. When you finish the conversation, most people won't take 5 minutes to acknowledge anything that happened. Well, you were just doing push-ups. You just grew. You just got stronger, right? So I think the power of that, I don't know that I'm expressing this, you know what I mean, and positioning this in the way as, you know, powerfully as I think if you listen to Huberman there and the way that he'll describe, you know, that example and the little wins and how much of a difference it can make. Look, this is, again, these are like, you know, these are your brain waves. This is your brain working in your favor. But you can take it, you know, and I think he talks about thoughts as like tangible things. So basically, you've got the power to control them. So I don't know, Road Dog. That's basically it, man. So create a monster vision, but absolutely, you've got to have small wins away. In fact, look, you and I, Road Dog, right now, right? Like we're watching the playoffs, right? Of course, we're watching your team play in the playoffs because my team's golfing, but whatever. But what do we do? You know, like the team wins and we're jumping up and down and you know what I mean? Woo, you know, go team. And you do it daily. And then they win the series and you're celebrating that. And then they win the game and then they lose the game. And it's the exact opposite, right? Where you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, oh, they actually literally put you into a bad mood, right? Well, that's the kind of stuff, like, you know, you're celebrating on that level for your sports team, but then you're going through growth and little wins along the way, like the uncomfortable conversation with your staff member, or whatever the little win is, like driving in traffic, getting a sale, whatever. Like most people in sales, you know, they get a sale, they can't wait to make the sale, they make the sale, and like they just all end up pissed off about the next one that's not coming. You know what I mean? Like you've got to have that little win so you can be in the rat, in the you know, in the tube, getting to the other side to get a piece of cheese or whatever. But that's absolutely critical, man. You got to set up the wins. And you got to set yourself up to get the wins. So it's a feedback loop. Actually, that's what it is. We talked about that earlier with the finances of, you know, taking $100,000 and making 40, you know, hiring a staff member, running advertising, what have you. You need that feedback loop, but it's the same here, right? Like you've got to have, you know, little wins. So there you go, buddy. That's what I'm going to say, man. That's the answer, buddy. That's the answer. Little wins along the way and celebrate them like crazy, man.
So I don't believe it's ever happened, but have you ever heard of a team to win the Stanley Cup? 16 wins. Takes 16 wins in the playoffs to win the Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? So like, has any team ever won 16 straight? Probably not. So you can't expect to have little wins without little defeats along the way, I would say.
Oh, good. There you go. So, okay. So the losses, it's celebrating the losses, but it's acknowledging the loss. And that's okay. Like we learned something. We learned how, you know, the goalie's got a bad glove hand. We learned that the lefty defenseman playing on the opposite side, when we cut outside and then come back inside, we did it 10 times and it had a favorable result free. We can exploit this next game, celebrate that. You know what I mean? Like always learning and then, but not just learning, but then celebrating it, right? Absolutely critical. And studying this stuff, you know what I mean? Like you gotta take the time to, you gotta stick your nose in a book and you gotta listen to audio and you gotta listen to video to learn the things that you want to learn. So, and celebrate it. So there you go, Road Dog. That's what I got, brother.
Speaking of books, that Chaos book, who's the author to that again?
Joel Peterson. Yeah, he's a stud. He's got lots. If you Google him, what is he? The 12 Rules of Life.
Not Joel. It's not Joel. It's not Joel.
Sorry?
Not Joel. It's not Joel. I'm telling you. Hang on. I'm actually pulling him up in my Audible right now.
Are you okay?
It's Jordan. What did you say? You said
Joel Peterson. Let's have a look here.
Jordan Peterson.
There you go. Oh, man. Well, there you go. Shoot. So that's what, buddy. That's why we pay you the big bucks, bud. There you go.
Yeah,
that's right.
Those don't count. All right, everybody. Karl, can you close us out with giving our listeners your one thing they can do today from today's
The one thing they can do is when you quote the author of a book, get it right. How's that? No, I think the feedback loop, again, if you're making your company, let's just say your company's doing $100,000 a year, and of course you have to live and that sort of stuff. Make sure that you've got a feedback loop set up. You have got to take a percentage of that and feed it back into your company. And the more you do that, the quicker you're going to grow. And quite frankly, what will happen is at some stage, you'll get, like when you understand the 4 laws of chaos, like when you go through them and whatnot, right, and accept them for what they are, at some stage you get like an 80, if you've ever seen like an 80-20 curve, you get an exponential curve. Like it's not exciting, not exciting, not exciting, not exciting, boom. The same way compound interest, right? It's not exciting, it's not exciting, it's not exciting. All of a sudden you're like, holy smokes, where'd all this dough come from, right? So same idea. So making sure that you've got a feedback loop for your company. There you go, bud. That's my final thought.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Thank you, brother.
I can't think of anything funny there. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, my boy King Karl. If you're not getting his daily emails or want more information on just how to build your coaching company, visit focused.com. That really doesn't like roll off it doesn't sound good on audio. Focused, like with an ED at the end. And subscribe today. Like it just makes it awkward, Karl. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share with an existing coach or someone you think would make a great coach. You know, someone that loves Tony Robbins or Tom Brady or just a great salesperson or highly motivated. And of course, we'd appreciate it if you rate this episode, as we know that iTunes, Spotify, and the like give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. Well, that's it for another week. Remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Make it a great week, everybody. Take care.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.